Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to Midlife by Design. I'm your host, Lori Lisai, human design teacher and midlife coach, here to help you use human design to shed the shoulds and be who you came here to be. Before we get into today's pod, I want to invite you into the Midlife Magic membership. If you want to start experimenting with human design with other midlife mavens, this is your chance this summer to be part of this beta launch. We start the day this podcast goes live, June 16th, and it's for you if you've been wanting to practice actually living your human design so that you can start feeling clarity about your decisions and grounded in who you are being. So the link is in the show notes, and I so hope to see you there. And then for any locals who are listening, I am teaching a perimenopause and human design in-person workshop on June 24th in Montpelier. So if you're in the area, I would love to see you there. And during that workshop, I'm going to help you navigate the changes that are happening in your body through the lens of human design. So sign up for that today. Link again is in the show notes. So today's pod features Mary Lee, who is a Canadian Armed Forces veteran. Very different kind of guest for me to have. However, wait till you hear what else she does, because she's also recently retired from a long career as a PR practitioner. But health and wellness has been a lifelong passion of hers, both as a competitive athlete and then as a fitness instructor. So through her own midlife transition, she began to recognize a significant lack of credible and reliable information and available resources to support and educate women through perimenopause. So because she was determined to debunk the mistruths and misinformation around hormonal health, she pursued a certification as a menopause doula. What? There's a menopause doula? Yes, there is. So she got that certification through the Doula Training Center in Toronto, and then furthered her studies as a licensed menopause educator through the Menopause Expert Group, which comes out of the UK. So she is also the host of the Menopause Disruptor podcast, and she aims over there to debunk the myths and misinformation that are surrounding this natural phase in a cisgender woman's life, and really to challenge limiting beliefs and outdated perspectives on women's health and fitness. So Mary's mission is twofold. She wants to empower women to take agency in their menopause journey and to educate the workforce to foster a culture of awareness around menopause. So there are some really cool statistics and pretty shocking and interesting information about the impact that women in menopause have on the workforce and just many things that are happening in our lives as we're making our way through perimenopause and menopause. So let's dive in. Welcome back to Midlife by Design. Today, I am so excited for you to meet my guest, Mary Lee, who is a menopause doula. Yes, you heard that right. There is such a thing as a doula for women in menopause, and she's going to tell us all about that and what that looks like. And I'm just super excited for her to be here today. Mary is a 2-4 emotional generator. So welcome, Mary, and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Lori. I'm very thrilled to be here. Very much honored. It was quite a journey, you and I talking on my podcast and learning about my generator type. And just before you hit record, I was telling Lori that I went back and I listened to our interview that will air soon on my podcast. And I was reminded of those traits as an emotional generator. And in that week or so since we spoke, things started to make sense. And I've seen now how it plays out in my life, and reflecting back on my journey that brought me to be here today as a menopause educator and women's coach and a menopause doula. It's like, of course, a 2-4 emotional generator would do just that.
I love it. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
So good. And so great to hear that even just since learning about it just a couple of weeks ago, that things feel like they're shifting.
Hmm. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So your story is very much a story of, I think, of grit and
Yeah.
beauty interwoven. So
Oh,
I would love for you to share a
yes.
bit about what shaped you into the woman that you are today.
Definitely grit. What does a lot of people think about when they think about grit? They think about Delta Forces, Navy SEALs, US Marines. Well, I was a Canadian Armed Forces military brat, as you will, and then I joined the military myself, and it was all about showing up, being strong. As a Gemini, I'm a communicator, so always was a little bit outspoken, but still very reserved and shy. But the military was just the right fit. I wanted to pursue that. It was more like there's women at the military college in Canada, so you want to join the military? This is my father influencing
Mm.
me. And when I said, what, there's military there at some Ivy League school for boys. So I went down and visited the college and I saw women doing amazing things, very strong, but not strong as in physically, just strong in pursuing their dreams, their goals. And I said, sign me up. If they can do it, I can do it too. And so I
Mm.
spent a career in the military, first in air traffic control, and then I moved on to public affairs. Oddly enough, two career fields that require a lot of communication.
Mm.
Um, and from there, my life just evolved. I met my husband in the military here where we live in Comox Valley, which is a military base, an
Mm.
Air Force base. And from there, I retired from the military after 20 years when my daughter was still very young, and I wanted to spend more time with her, just working long hours, um, just fighting through those long days.
Mhm.
I just felt like I was missing that piece of being her mother. So I said, 20 years in, I'm retiring at the 20-year mark. And I continued on my career in public relations, public affairs, served in many clients in healthcare, life sciences, education. And, but I always pursued fitness, again, something like grit, getting strong, pursuing physical fitness. I loved it so much, just being competitive in sports as a kid and in the military. And I moved into it as a side hustle alongside my military career and thereafter. But it always kept calling me back. Sports, fitness, women's wellness. And I was working with another woman in a studio. We were putting together a little master class for women in fitness. We were going to incorporate the chakra energy system, Ayurvedic principles with yoga.
Mm.
And a lot of the women that were clients in these classes were asking us about perimenopause and menopause and their symptom management strategy. And it occurred to me, I said to Shelley, we really need to get smart on menopause if we are going to lead these women through a significant time in their life. And this is our target audience. So I haphazardly looked up online and I came across an article in Vogue magazine about a menopause doula. I was like, a
Mm.
menopause doula? What the heck is that? And so I Googled it, and sure enough, the doula training center here in Canada, in Toronto, that does largely birthing doulas, were offering a menopause doula course, and I jumped right on it. And
Mm.
right away, the first module was all about the science of our hormones. Having clients in life sciences and being in science communication, I was hooked.
Mm.
And one course led to another in brain health for menopause, Dr. Stacy Sims, Menopause 2.0. Then I landed upon the Girls Gone Strong women's health coaching certification program, which is the world's leading and first women's health coaching for all stages in women's life. And
Mm.
I just couldn't get enough of it. And with the communication background and curating all kinds of information and repackaging it and delivering it to the audience in bite-sized chunks that makes the information impactful relatable,
Mhm.
and you'd fulfill a call to action, whatever it might be. It just made sense. It was a perfect fit.
Mhm.
I was also going through my menopause phase as well, and working in the corporate environment, just it wasn't working for me. And I'll speak to this, but
Mm.
statistics are 1 in 10 women will leave the workforce because their menopause symptoms are to the point where it's hard to find that life balance, that work life balance. And I, as much as I love doing corporate PR, again, just like when I left the military to be with my daughter, I just felt this call. We would lead from the sacral, that gut feeling.
Mhm.
I just felt like there was
Mhm.
this call to hang up the corporate PR hat and go follow my passion,
Mm.
which is women's health and wellness, and be a little bit outspoken about it. Hence why my podcast is called the Menopause Disruptor, because I am challenging beliefs and disrupting the norm and our old, paradigm shift about how women should approach their menopause. But not only that, the whole understanding around female hormone health and how we've had it all wrong, and that needs
Mm.
to change. Yeah.
Mhm. Mm.
So, la
Preach.
voila,
Mhm.
pretty but beautiful.
Yeah, what a beautiful story. And as you were talking, I was reflecting, of course, on some of the elements of your human design, like the generator energy type. We tend to develop mastery. We tend to go very deeply into an area of study led by our sacral. And your example of this through line of strength and women's health and wellness is
Mm.
such a great example of that. So I just wanted to kind of shine a light on that as a way to show our listeners how living the life of a generator can play out, and it's not necessarily that you were doing the same job. However, there were components of this love of health and fitness and a focus on women's strength throughout everything, right, that you
Mhm.
have done. And what a beautiful example of how generators thrive when they go really deeply. And I also love that Gemini energy coming out with the communications, and you've got a podcast and just helping to serve women and also disrupt. And this is where I think we
Ah,
share so much in common with disrupting the norm and how we approach this phase of life, this midlife phase, and menopause, perimenopause, the transition in general. So you you do some work in supporting corporations with how they can support women in perimenopause and menopause. And that feels to me so incredibly groundbreaking and important. You
yeah.
share the statistic of 1 in 10 women leave work. From my vantage point, I feel like maybe it even should be higher in terms of women following and doing what they actually want to do. And this is how they want to spend their time. Because I talk with a lot of women who are feeling like, I don't want to do this job anymore. I feel like I am so done. However, I'm wondering if what you're seeing is part of that reason is such a lack of support in
Yeah.
corporate worlds. And so I'd love to hear what do you do with corporations? How are you working as a champion for menopause and women in menopause?
Absolutely. So first of all, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to read out some shocking statistics. I covered it in a blog post on my blog, my
Okay.
website. So, as I said, 1 in 10. So, just here are some other interesting statistics. So, in Canada, there was a groundbreaking study done through the Menopause Foundation of Canada. And this landmark national research was revealed in October of 2022. It revealed that there is a significant toll on the economy. Unmanaged menopause symptoms are negatively impacting women's well-being and their productivity, and then this ultimately will impact the Canadian economy. So if you think about it, women age 40 and older make up a quarter of the Canadian population. I'm sure it's very similar in the United States and in many other countries. Roughly a quarter of those Canadians in the workforce are potentially experiencing menopause. So in this report from the Menopause Foundation, they found that when these menopause symptoms go unmanaged, and I'll speak to that too from both the personal perspective, but also how a community, a corporation can support. There's a staggering 3.5 billion annually economic impact and $237 million in lost productivity and 540,000 missed days of work per year. So these are big numbers. We need to pay attention to what's going on. But it's not just women leaving the workforce. So 3/4 of women experiencing menopause say that these symptoms interfere with their daily lives and their work performance. So now we have what's called presenteeism, where employees are physically present at work, but they're not fully productive. And this is the hidden cost to employers, okay? Show up at work, but we've had a crappy night's sleep, experiencing night sweats, hot flashes, for example. We have cognitive fog, like brain fog, cognitive function issues, which was really what impacted me the most. I couldn't form sentences. I couldn't find my words. I couldn't find or remember where I put a report. We speak from the gut. I felt that there was this gut, brain, and it's a connection. I felt that was completely severed. I couldn't get the signals to lean into my instincts, to tell my gut, to find the right answers, to be very strategic. It's like, who am I? There was this complete disconnect. And that is part of what happens when estrogen leaves the body. Here's some other shocking statistics from another report. It's a survey by Opinium of the Vodafone Group. 62% of women experiencing menopause said it impacted their work. 50% with symptoms, women with symptoms felt that there was stigma around talking about menopause. And of course, we spend hours of our day at work. So if you felt that there's too much stigma and you're embarrassed or didn't feel confident to talk about it, you're sitting in silence for a very long time of your living days. 44% felt too embarrassed to talk about or ask for support at the workplace. And 66% agreed that there should be more workplace support for women going through menopause. I look at those statistics and I thought, we have a problem. Not only did this Menopause Foundation report reveal that we have it from an economic perspective, but these numbers tell me so many women are not feeling powerful enough, supported enough, confident enough to go through a very natural phase in a woman's life. And furthermore, this is leading to the global issue we're having with mental health. This is just further contributing to it. It's bad enough that women are going to the doctors, and not everyone, but many women, certainly the ones that I've been working with, there's a large percentage saying their doctors outright dismissing them. They're not paying attention. They're chalking up to a bad night's sleep, or it's depression. Take some antidepressants, go home, get a good night's sleep, lose weight. You're getting too heavy, cut down on your calories. This is just poor messaging to women because the women's physiology, her anatomic structure, and then her hormonal health has never been part of the equation until recently. And even then, in the study that was commissioned in the early 2000s, and then the study was abruptly halted in 2002, the Women's Health Initiative, the messages that came out of that were all just for sensationalism and headlines saying, throw away your estrogen, it's going to cause breast cancer. Well, we didn't look at the report. It was a poorly done report with a poor age group that were in the study who already had health markers. such as cardiovascular health issues, and they were sedate or overweight and never active in their lives, which is not the average population of women.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked at that and I said, okay, hang on a sec. There's one thing about empowering the woman to advocate for health when she goes to her doctor. It's quite another thing when she shows up at work and she's still feeling not confident enough to just be human, just to
Mm-hmm.
allow her body to naturally transition. So this really is taking a toll. So what can we do to ourselves up for success, not just for the female employees? And let's face it, a lot of these female employees are also the CEOs of their own company. So we want to teach them how to be empathetic and to feel that they can create a support in their environment, in the workplace culture where women can feel completely safe. There's no stigma attached to it. And so they say, okay, wait a minute, my doctor's not going to be kind to me. At least my manager will be kind to me, or at least I can go and chit chat about it in the coffee room and have a few laughs. But
Mm-hmm.
then it's not just office workers. Think about factory line workers, women who are doing construction, operating heavy equipment. And if they if they haven't had a good night's sleep, or they're feeling brain fog and they're not mentally switched on, like just
Mm-hmm.
think about the potential detriment that that might have in the workplace as well. And of course, as women, we're like, we can do it. We got to show up. We got to do our job. Society says we have to keep up with the man, or
Mm-hmm.
we will tolerate, we'll put up with it, anything and everything, because by nature we're built that way, because we are the mothers, the family, the nurturers, the matriarch. And so it always has been about everyone comes first, I come last.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the initial question, we bring workplace education to managers, HR teams, executive staff, just about anybody and everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all about breaking down the taboos about menopause. So, very much like learning to become a doula, we get right back to the science first.
Mm-hmm.
This is the science of the human body. This is the role of hormones. This is what they do to protect us. And when we lose them, this is what is detrimental. This is what's left behind. So then we translate it into, so if we are having brain fog or cognitive function issues, or we're had a bad night's sleep, or we're just feeling aching joint pain, this is how it will now play out in the workplace. This is what the women can potentially be experiencing. And then you add on to that layer of she's too ashamed to talk about it and doesn't know where to turn. This further exacerbates symptoms. So
Mm-hmm.
then we start looking at it from perspective of what can we do in the workforce? What can we do in your place of business to make it more accommodating for women? Have you thought about breakout rooms where they can just go and sit in quietly, maybe put their head down, put their feet up, cooling rooms? Or we go through the workplace and say, don't have one set heating, cooling system and your office, and then place all these women in cubicle, or your staff in cubicles. And then maybe the women are on the inside and they're not close to a window where they can feel like they can open up the window to regulate their body temperature. Because while
Mm-hmm.
everybody's comfortable at maybe its set temperature of 68 degrees or 72 degrees, for some women, that is bloody hot. So it's
Mm-hmm.
looking at it from a practical standpoint, but it's also looking at it from a holistic standpoint. It's also
Mm-hmm.
looking about how we talk and have conversations. I gave a lot of data, but this is where the stories stick. In my experience, we, with my team at work, we all check in the morning. There's engineers, project managers, and myself as a communicator. So for our project, we have a morning check-in every morning, and we would do it on Zoom. Some of our staff were away working hybrid. And so we always started off, how was your weekend? Just to get everybody charged up and reconnect. And
Mm-hmm.
so I have a lot of younger staff on my team. So they're in their 30s and they're still full of energy, maybe no kids or their children are young. And I remember those days. And so they think, oh, we went mountain biking with the boys. Oh, we did a kayak trip over the weekend. Or, oh, I had the kids out. We were hiking out by the lake, whatever. And they're just like, oh, look at us. We're so energetic, full of life. And I said, Mary, what did you do for the weekend? I said, oh, I slept.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything else. I just slept. It was so good just to not have to wake up early in the morning and I could do my own thing.
Mm.
And then one of the engineers pipes up and says, well, that's depressing. What a depressing life you live. And then I realized, holy shit. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Language.
We're all the time on the podcast. Go for it.
We disrupt, right? So
that's right.
Language is, yeah. I realized that our language can be so hurtful and we don't even know we're doing it. And it goes right back to diversity, equity, and inclusion for sure. You know, just like little cultural slurs or just jokes that we grew up with and we don't even realize the pain that it can inflict on somebody. And then all the pieces start to fall together. I get it. So then I'm being a communicator, being a little bit forthright. I'm like, hell, I'm having a hot flash. It freaking sucks. Or, yeah, you know what? That report I wrote for you and it was all set to go for you Monday morning. I can't really remember where I put it because this is just my menopause brain. I had to learn to shift and make light of my situation. It was the only way I was going to survive. Not knowing whether it was acceptable in my workplace environment. But when I started to do it, I noticed other women were coming to me and they were being very open and forthright. And I reflected on that and realized this is just one workplace. And of course, I'd been in other workplaces, moving from client to client. But the story was all the same. And women hide in shame and embarrassment and they close it off. But that's not who we are. We are a whole person, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. You sever one part of who you are and you're operating at a disability in my mind. And I realized we have to change this. I partnered with the Menopause Expert Group, which is based in the UK, but we're now in over 24 countries, training individuals of all vocations in life, doctors, physicians, clinicians, psychiatrists, psychologists, PR practitioners, everyday working moms, anybody and everybody, educated to become champions so that we can take their package of information and go into the workplace and deliver the education programs that help educate staff about menopause and to break the taboo around women's health and be more accommodating and accepting so we can foster a culture of acceptance and support. And I thought, of course, this happened in my life, Lori, because when I did my master's degree and even in my bachelor's degree, organizational behavior was my favorite course. And my master's degree went on to be, and it was in PR, but it went on to be my thesis on improving organizational culture through internal communications.
Perfect.
And now I landed in this, like, okay, I get it. So this is the whole part about surrendering to your journey and your life story, surrendering to the ebb and flow, and realizing that it's all part of your education and your soul journey to arrive at your purpose. And now, yeah, I just am fully appreciative of everything that happens and why.
And what a beautiful example of you following those breadcrumbs, which is another component of being a generator. And when you are living in alignment and you're practicing your strategy, our strategy as generators is to respond. So you're getting these little breadcrumbs and just following them and following that excitement. There's so much that you shared, and I would love to respond to everything, but there are a couple points that I jotted down. One was This thought about the workplace, and when you were reading through all of those statistics, I was thinking to myself, yes, there's an economic impact, and there is a toll that it takes on our society as a whole. And to me, it just was kind of screaming, this is the patriarchy at work, right? And
Yeah.
the constant misunderstanding of women as different than men. And even before we get to perimenopause, during the birthing years, for example, the amount of time that women are given to recover from birthing babies, or,
Yeah.
even having your period every month, bleeding
Yeah.
every single month, the amount
Yeah.
of nutrients and whatnot that our bodies need. And we are just very different humans. And your work and what you were describing and how impactful menopause and perimenopause is on women just had me thinking again about the equality issue there, and also why your work is so important, bringing that awareness and creating environments where you no longer have to make a joke out of it, like, oh, I'm having a hot
Yeah.
flash, but
Yeah.
instead you're met with empathy, like, oh, how can I help you feel more comfortable? And I love that the work that you're doing is bringing in practical tools and solutions for supporting perimenopausal women, like make sure that the women have a window nearby. Something as simple as that can make such a difference. Shout out to my friends Ducky and Deb. When I was teaching, they were in the throes of perimenopause in my last few years, and they used to all the time just be like, oh my God, hot flash. Okay, wait for it, wait for it. And they would run over and open up the window. And I would kind of giggle and plus also think to myself, okay, this is coming, this is interesting. Because even as a woman, I hadn't been through that experience yet. I did not have that empathy. So I would continue carrying on the conversation while they're standing over there, fanning themselves. And really, probably what would have been most supportive was to say, hit the pause button and let me just get my temperature down to below inferno so that I can focus on what you're saying. So I really love that. The
Yeah.
education piece comes first and explaining what are the hormones doing. Plus, you're also sharing real practical tips that people can put into place to change things and to make this truly integrated and part of the fabric of a community at work that is working to support all of their employees so that they can accomplish the mission of the work that they're setting out to do.
Yeah.
So, thank you so
Exactly.
much for that.
Yes. I mean, it really is groundbreaking work, but it's shifting. And I do want to share one more thing, because I think it's important because we talk about the doom and gloom, but there is positive inspiration in the world that is showing that big leading companies are taking this seriously. The
Mm.
UK seems to be leading the way,
Mm-hmm.
although I've come across stories about companies like Kellogg,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, Vodafone Group, which commissioned one of the studies, the RSA Group, are implementing menopause-friendly policies, training, and support programs. And
Mm.
these initiatives often align with the Menopause Bill, which is a support and services bill that the UK Parliament had passed to focus on workplace support, affordable hormone replacement therapy, and clinical training, which is really leading the charge. And we
Mm.
need to see more of that, I think, in North America, but the opportunities are there. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why for organizations like the Menopause Expert Group, which was founded in the UK in 2020, felt it was really important to certify individuals to become a licensed champion, and that these champions are worldwide, can train become workplace educators, to train companies of all sizes, that the shift begins within the culture of the organization. You want brand ambassadors, you want to reduce absenteeism, you want to increase retention and recruitment. It's no longer about just helping the employees, it's about helping the reputation of the organization. And big companies are realizing this too. If we want to attract more employees, and women are making up a large percentage of the workforce, then they have to demonstrate. We speak about mental health, we speak about diversity, equity, inclusion. This is right in line with all of it. We may not always have employees who are going through significant mental health issues, although I would tend to believe that COVID is probably just tipped us over the scale. And we may not have people in the workplace who have either a physical disability that you can see, such as have the use of a wheelchair, for example, or the unseen disabilities, which include ADHD, other neurodivergent traits, autistic, and I'm going to speak to this as well, even dyslexia. We don't see those. And you may not have them in the workplace, or you might not know, or the individual might not even know that they have it. But you're certainly going to have menopause in the workplace. Cisgender women who reach the ages, and it's starting earlier for some. Mid-30s right through to the 50s, even can be feeling symptoms into their 60s. I mean, that's almost 50% of women's lives. Guaranteed that menopause is going to be in the workforce. So let's get wise.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. You mentioned the neurodiversity. I just want to circle back and give you the opportunity to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So oddly enough, I knew that I had dyslexia as a child. Use a personal story first. I would always spell my name with a backwards R and a backwards Y. I had spelling mistakes all the time. I had to write in big, big letters so that I could see my letters properly, so reduce the risk of having a spelling mistake. And as a kid, I mean, the brain's very clever. It'll find neural pathways to autocorrect. So as a kid, I just did what I did, and I would be scolded for bad writing, spelling mistakes. So I was never fully diagnosed, officially diagnosed, but it doesn't matter. Neurodivergent traits can be self-diagnosed too. If it's only going out to get a diagnosis that gives you a ticket where you needed to be accommodated for education purposes or workforce. But since I had my podcast, and I have done several interviews with women who talk about ADHD or other cognitive or even autism, all those podcast episodes have been downloaded quite extensively. So they're showing the most popular, drawing the most interest. And I thought, this is interesting. But even so, on a topic with women on something entirely different, if that topic comes up, I'm hearing more often that women in perimenopause are also getting their diagnosis or discovering that they have a neurodivergent trait. Intersection between a menopause and neurodivergent trait is very nuanced and very complex. Very important that a woman, if she's concerned, get diagnosed so that you can present your case to your doctor, if you will, so that you'll have the proper support in place. Because symptoms are amplified, particularly when it comes to the brain fog, the lack of confidence, the inability to think and perform mentally. It has such a heightened, it displays very high. And I can't compare, there is statistic out there, and there's a lot of studies that draw upon these conclusions too. And then you add to that, if there's been a concussion as well, or a traumatic event, and let's face it, a lot of us have had traumatic events from our childhood, ACEs, acute childhood experience or event. This also shapes the brain. The synapses, how the brain fires. We find neural pathways to help us cope and deal even mask and hide. So back to hormones and fluctuating through menopause and perimenopause and menopause. When estrogen leaves the body, it's a great shield. It's a great protector. Anti-inflammatory properties, immunomodulatory, neuroprotective, all that goes. So all those things that have been hidden, whether they've been known of or not, whether we've managed to cope and mask, or they've always been there and we didn't realize it, we just went through life going, oh, that's just the way I am. They reveal themselves tenfold. And then a woman says, am I going crazy? Is this just menopause or is there something else? So I say, after seeing this trend and this topic comes up more and more with women that I meet, I'm realizing maybe there's something more to it than we really understand. And that if there's any suspicion, a woman should go get diagnosed and find out for herself so that she can start not better understanding who she is by design, but realizing that there are resources out there to help her through her transition. One being cognitive behavior therapy, and just helping address some of those hidden issues that often lead to, we create stories in our mind, if you will, to bypass the pain or to take the blame. So there's a lot of self-shaming and learning how to reshape our thoughts and presenting those automatic negative thoughts that come in, to understand that those are just thoughts, but that we are far more capable than we give ourselves credit for. But we limit ourselves, we limit our beliefs. And then when you get the menopause symptoms, it just further exacerbates the situation. And then it becomes more of a mental health concern. There's a high statistic of women committing suicide, suicidal tendency, suicidal ideology, or ideation, I should say, is very high in the late 40s. What does that tell you? How it aligns with menopause.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to speak to that in a personal story. I lost a friend who was in her early 50s. She took her life. And nobody quite understood why. Now with the training that I've had and the education, I would hazard a guess that it had to do with the mental trauma she went through in menopause. And she had no support. She lived in a very small town that she moved to with her then husband. Marital problems, which also tend to align with menopause, because we no longer feel beautiful about ourselves anymore. So we kind of give up on ourselves. Of course, it's going to take a toll on our loved ones. I started looking at this from the perspective of, I think that this was menopause. I believe that this was a woman who never had the support because she never felt confident. I don't even know what the relationship was with her doctor, but she was quite focused and I would say almost obsessed with good health. And she had charts all over her house about when to take vitamins, when to eat certain foods. It became an obsession. Very much probably was her way of controlling what was happening to her body through the transition, and didn't know. And there's support out there. And again, we need to break down the stigma and the taboo and talk about this and accept it and then recognize. So part of the education I like to bring to the workforce is also telling my personal story and weaving in the neurodivergent traits into it as well. We're seeing companies accommodate autism and ADHD quite beautifully. But you add to it that extra layer now with menopause, it becomes very complex. So we just have to meet people where they're at, that seek first to understand before being understood. And that comes with education.
Well, first of all, Mary, I'm so sorry about the loss of your friend. And thank you for sharing that story. Everything that you were talking about just makes me think about what a portal perimenopause is, because
Yeah.
it's such a long transition, right? It can last roughly 10 years. And there's so much, as you said, the that estrogen brings to the table in terms of helping support our health, and that just falls away. And it's not that we can't function as healthy, beautiful women after the loss of estrogen. It's just that it's such a change in how we do support our bodies and our souls. And
Yeah.
the journey through that is really challenging. And I love that you highlighted the mental health component and how much self-shaming can happen just because we feel like we should be the way that we were when we were younger, or when we had all the estrogen on our side. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, if you have one, what is your secret to menopause symptom management?
The body is innately designed to self-heal. If
Mm-hmm.
I could tell an audience of women they're suffering through their symptoms and looking for answers or going to their doctor and saying, I need bioidentical hormones, and either the doctor is not wanting to broach the subject whatsoever because they have their own hidden agendas and lack of education,
Mm-hmm.
um, or for whatever the woman is seeking and is going to the doctor to get the answers. And
Mm-hmm.
I could say to them, what if I told you all the answers lie within your body? All the answers nature provides.
Mm-hmm.
So when I work with one-on-one clients and I coach women, we take a four-pronged approach. Actually, there's a fifth, but the four key pillars of good health all boils down to lifestyle. What you're putting in your body, how are you moving your body, how are you calming your body, so stress management,
Mm-hmm.
and are you getting good sleep, which for sure, in my mind, is the panacea of good health for
Mm-hmm.
anybody, any age. And we start breaking it down to show women that this is a golden opportunity, that all those things that you never dealt with before or thought you could get away out with are it's going to come back to haunt you. So let's get wise. Let's start using the body as the vessel that it was designed to do. Fuel it properly with good whole food first and move the body. The body is designed to move.
Mm-hmm.
So move it to the point where you are applying an external force on the muscles so that muscles mass can increase and become more metabolically active in the body, which is I'd say it's your ticket to good health. Not just the muscles though, because you have to fuel the muscles. So up your
Mm-hmm.
protein. You're not eating enough and you're not eating enough proteins.
Mm-hmm.
I also addressed the energetic part of our body. We are a body of matter, but we're also, that matter is energy. And so
Mm-hmm.
if we can teach our bodies to use the energy wisely, and the first place we start is get the cortisol levels down and get yourself back into your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest digest.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a society, in a generation, in a time in the modern world where we're constantly living in a stress cycle.
Mm-hmm.
We don't close the stress cycle. We're triggered, we're stressed, we're triggered, we're stressed, and we're not taking the time to close that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
This is where women become wise and say, for the first time in their lives, if they've never done it before, I come first. I am number one.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to take the time to exercise and I'm going to take the time to restore. And that includes things like restorative yoga, yin yoga, meditation, a long hot bubble bath, door
Mm-hmm.
closed, music on, and you can shut off the world. And we've heard it before. We're only good to others when we're good to ourselves. We're only as capable of helping others when we help ourselves. We can only be as compassionate as we are as compassionate to ourselves, and it begins with self-love.
Mm.
It's a multi-pronged approach. Where do you start first? It's difficult. When I work with women, we start unpacking it. But one of the first things I do is just probably a starting point for anybody. Get real with yourself.
Mm.
Do some vision casting and sit down and start identifying where are your values and what are your priorities. Is your priority to be able to lift your groceries up a flight of stairs if you are suddenly living by yourself? Do you want to age in place? What kind of quality of life do you want? You're going to spend 50% of your life through the perimenopause and postmenopause years. How do you
Mm-hmm.
want to live out that last 50%? It's about getting real with yourself. And then once they can identify, we write a vision statement. My vision statement for myself is, I want to
Mm-hmm.
live a quality of life in which I can walk to the grocery store, pick up my grandchildren, play with them, live in place. I mean, what a great goal that is, just to live in place and be completely physically, mentally capable of doing it. And then
Mm.
we start reverse engineering. It's not a pill, it's not a cream. It
Mm-hmm.
begins with going inside and getting real. And I think, Lori, the work that you're doing with the Midlife by Design, tapping into that human design, and you said it to me on my podcast. This is your this is your roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
This is your North Star, your guiding light. Getting to know who you are. Do whatever it takes to get to know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Spend the money on a course. Buy that book that you've been always wondering about to find out who you are.
Mm.
Spend the money to do whatever it is you need to do to invest in your health and your
Mm-hmm.
happiness, and hire a mentor, a coach, accountability partner, somebody who's going to help guide you along the way as you follow your compass rose, your North Star.
Mm-hmm.
Money is just energy. You invest in yourself, it's going to pay its back. It's the job of energy to come back and
Right.
come back in great abundance.
Yeah.
And I guess there's one other thing that I would say too. When you're feeling, because we talked briefly about the cortisol, when we're feeling that anxiety start to percolate, we're stimulated, we're triggered, and we don't know how to make a decision or make any sense of what's going on. Use your breath as
Mm.
our life force. Stop, place your hands on your heart, take a big inhale, fill up the lungs, feel that life force vibrate through your body, and then a nice long exhale, and do that a couple of times. And then take your thoughts away from the racing mind and just slip into gratitude.
Mm.
Call 1, 2, 3 things out that you're grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
Because gratitude, and this has been scientifically proven, gratitude is an energy, and it will shift your vibration. And
Mm-hmm.
if we're matter made up of vibrations, if we vibrate at a higher frequency, the universe will respond with the same vibration. It is the law of vibration, it's the law of attraction. It's
Mm-hmm.
undeniable.
Mm.
So we have the power in us right now to shift everything. And then we can get to work, finding that clarity, getting back onto our purpose.
Mm.
That is,
Love
I've
it.
just solved the world problem right
You
there.
really have, Mary. Let's mic drop. That's the end. Tie it up in a
Boom.
bow. Boom. Awesome. All right. Tell us, what do you have cooking? Where can we find you?
Well, I'm always excited to work with corporations. And so I would just love to extend that, cast that wide net. But working with one-on-one women for sure, particularly in women's health and wellness, strength training, that is my superpower, I guess you could say. So my website is mlcoaching.com, and it's spelt phonically. So that is EMMEELLE coaching.com. ML is the phonics spelling of my initials, Mary Lee. And I think I said this on my show. Am or Erm is the German term for universal. Also, in some um, circles, it's also considered goddess. And
Mm.
then Elle, French for she, girl. It's also rooted in Greek and Hebrew for feminine. And I
Mm.
say, menopause, what could be more universally feminine?
Mm.
So I had an epiphany and I had an amazing download. And I said, I would like my business to be called ML Coaching. So that's where you can find me. You can also find me on the Menopause Disruptor podcast, which is streaming YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And my Instagram handle is Menopause Disruptor.
Great.
And I'm also on LinkedIn as Mary Helen Lee. And what I've got cooking, well, really, it's about wanting people to find me authentically, which is why I podcast, because in PR we say it's the most intimate form of communication, of
Mhm.
PR. So I want people to land on me authentically and have that connection. So I do send out a newsletter and a few free guides, which is my Power Up with Protein guide to fuel the guns. Um,
Mhm.
and then just get to know who I am and decide whether they want to work with me or not. Most of my clients are just finding me through either taking my classes or my podcast. And
Love
yeah,
it.
that's where you can find me.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh, Mary, thank you so much for sharing your genius with us and for just doing the work that you do. It's so incredibly important. And I
Mm,
wish you so much success in
thank
spreading the
you.
word and helping to support midlife women with this transition. So thank you so much for being here today.
Laurie, thank you for the work that you do too. And I can't say enough. If people really want to know a little bit more about what makes them tick, go to your website and get their free design. It was enlightening. It was so enlightening. Light bulb moments for me when you did mine. So
Love it. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Midlife by Design. And you can hear my voice is a little scratchy today because our boys, my son's lacrosse team, won the D2 state championships this past weekend. Whoop, whoop. Can we get a hell yeah for Harwood Union? So yeah, I was playing my mom cards big time and using my voice to cheer on the boys. So feeling really excited about that beautiful milestone in his life and just wanted to share that with you as my listeners. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to the pod. I hope that it was inspiring for you and really eye-opening. I think Mary brought a lot of interesting statistics about perimenopause and menopause and some interesting points, especially about ADHD diagnoses and mental health during perimenopause. So if you have been struggling with one of those things, then I encourage you to talk to your doctor about it and don't be gaslit. Refuse to be gaslit if you are being brushed off, because many women are finding a diagnosis for neurodivergence during this time period, and also mental health problems, or issues, I should say, not problems. They are challenges, and that HRT is something that has often been prescribed for women who are having mental health challenges and have been shown to be more effective than SSRIs. Now, I am not a health practitioner, and so I am just sharing with you research that I've done on my own. And so I would encourage you to look at what Mary Claire Haver has been talking about recently in June of 2025 when this podcast drops, in terms of mental health and the studies that she's bringing to light for us. So, as always, as I'm signing off here, I am sending you strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and clarity to be who you came here to be.